Welcome back to Growth Within. We love to do these deep dives. And today we're tackling something, I think we all have a love-hate relationship with meetings.
Oh, absolutely. Meetings, they can be the bane of our existence. But we also can't seem to live without them, right?
Exactly. We're going to be looking at a bunch of different sources today to try to pull out those golden nuggets, those really helpful tips and strategies that can help us all make our meetings more effective. Because, let's face it, nobody wants to waste time in unproductive meetings.
Well, and not just time, right? Think about
Yeah.
the actual money that's lost because of ineffective meetings. Did you know that in the U.S. alone, ineffective meetings cost businesses something like $37 billion annually?
Wow. No, I did not know that. But I believe it. It's got to be a ton of money wasted globally, too, I'd imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Globally, it's estimated to be over $541 billion wasted in employee time due to unproductive meetings.
Oof. That's a lot of wasted potential.
It really is. And the irony is, we all complain about meetings, but we also rely on them for so many important things. Collaboration, brainstorming, decision-making, innovation. It's all happening in meetings. So the question is, how can we make them work better?
That is the million-dollar question.
That's
and that's
it.
exactly what we're going to dive into today.
Exactly. And, one of the things that really jumped out at me as I was going through these sources is the importance of understanding the different types of meetings. We tend to lump them all together, but there's actually a lot of nuance there.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're saying there's more to it than just, team meeting or project update.
Right. Just like you wouldn't use a hammer to screw in a light bulb, you shouldn't approach every meeting the same way. The key is to choose the right type of meeting for your specific goal, because when you do that, you actually save time, you increase engagement, and you're much more likely to achieve the desired outcome.
Okay, that makes sense. So walk us through some of these different types. What are we talking about here?
Sure. So let's start with decision-making meetings. These are the meetings where the stakes are high, and the goal is crystal clear. You need to reach a decision.
So like a board meeting where you're deciding on a major investment or a company merger?
Exactly. High stakes stuff. You need a structured approach. Clear roles. Everyone needs to be prepared to engage in some pretty in-depth discussion.
Okay, so big decisions, lots of structure. Got it.
What else?
Then you've got brainstorming meetings. Now these are all about unleashing creativity, exploring new ideas, thinking outside the box.
So the opposite of a decision-making meeting where you need to be focused and decisive.
Yeah, you could say that brainstorming is about letting those ideas flow freely. No judgment. It's like when a product development team is trying to come up with a brand new feature. You want that open, free-flowing environment.
That makes sense. So you've got decision-making, brainstorming. What other types are there?
Well, sometimes things go wrong, right?
Yeah.
Projects hit snags, problems arise. That's where problem-solving meetings come in. Okay, so this is like when a project is facing a major roadblock and you need to bring everyone together to figure out a solution.
Precisely. You bring the right people together, you analyze the situation, you dissect the issue, and you come up with a clear plan of action.
So far, we've got meetings for decisions, brainstorming, and tackling problems. Seems like each type has a very distinct purpose.
You got it. And then to make sure everyone is on the same page. Especially in larger organizations, you've got alignment meetings.
Alignment meetings, what are those all about?
Alignment meetings are all about making sure that everyone is rowing in the same direction, working towards a common goal. Imagine different teams working on a shared project. An alignment meeting helps keep everyone in sync on timelines, on roles, and responsibilities on the overall objectives.
Oh, I see. So it's all about preventing wasted effort and miscommunication down the line.
Exactly. And believe it or not, you even have meetings that are specifically for relationship building.
Relationship building meetings, that's a new one for me.
Yeah. I know, right? But they're actually really important. These meetings are less about tasks and deadlines and more about just fostering those connections within a team building trust and rapport.
So things like team lunches, offsites, or even just, informal coffee chats.
Exactly. When people trust and understand each other, they tend to collaborate more effectively, communication flows more smoothly, there's less conflict. So yeah, relationship building meetings definitely have their place.
I never really thought about it that way.
Yeah.
But it makes total sense. I guess it's easy to get so caught up in the day-to-day that we forget about the importance of nurturing those relationships.
Absolutely. And keep in mind, these are just some of the broad categories. Our sources dive into a lot more detail about specific meeting types as well, like daily check-ins for quick updates, idea generation sessions, retrospective meetings. There's even the classic one-on-one meeting for personalized feedback and development.
Wow. So there's a whole taxonomy of meetings out there. I never realized there was so much nuance to it. But choosing the right type of meeting is obviously just the first step. I'm guessing there's a lot more to it than that, right?
You're absolutely right. It's like having the right ingredients for a recipe. Now you need to know how to combine them effectively.
Yeah.
And that's where the practical strategies come in, the real nitty-gritty of making meetings work.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's hear those strategies.
Let's do it. Okay, so we've talked about all these different types of meetings and how important it is to choose the right type for the goal you're trying to achieve.
Right, it's like picking the right tool for the job.
Yeah,
You wouldn't use a screwdriver to hammer in a nail.
exactly. But choosing the right type is just the foundation. You also need to have a solid strategy for running the meeting itself. That's where the real magic happens.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. What are some of the most effective strategies for making meetings actually productive? And maybe even, dare I say, enjoyable?
Enjoyable. That might be a stretch. But we can definitely make them more productive. One of the things that really stood out to me in the research is the importance of having a clear objective for every meeting.
Yeah, that seems pretty basic.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing you're talking about more than just, writing project update on that calendar invite.
Oh yeah, way more than that. I'm talking about ditching those vague, generic meeting titles altogether and instead framing the objective as a specific outcome-driven statement.
So instead of saying project update, I might say something like finalize marketing plan for product launch.
Exactly. Or review Q2 sales figures and identify growth opportunities. See how those titles are much more specific.
Oh yeah, definitely. They tell you exactly what the meeting is about and what you should be prepared to discuss. It's like setting an intention for the meeting.
Right. When everyone knows what they're walking into, they're more likely to come prepared, they're more likely to actively participate, and the meeting is much more likely to be productive.
That makes a lot of sense. So specific objectives.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
Another super important strategy is to be really intentional about who you invite to the meeting.
Oh, so no more inviting the entire department just in case.
Right. It's tempting to think that more people equals more ideas, but in reality, it often just leads to more distractions and less focus. You want to make sure that everyone who's in the room truly needs to be there, that their presence is essential to achieving the meeting's objective.
So how do you decide who's essential and who's not?
Ask yourself, who needs to be involved in making the decisions, and who has critical information or insights that are relevant to the topic. If someone can be easily caught up later, or if their input isn't absolutely necessary, then don't invite them. It's better to have a smaller, more focused group than a large, unengaged one.
That makes sense. I've definitely been in those meetings where there are way too many people and it just gets chaotic.
Oh.
Okay, so specific objectives. Be selective about who you invite. What else?
This one might seem a little obvious, but it's often overlooked. Make sure you have a clear agenda for every meeting, and share it with participants in advance.
Oh yeah. The agenda, I've seen so many meetings go off the rails because there's no clear agenda, or the agenda is just like a vague list of bullet points.
Your agenda should outline the specific topics you'll be discussing, the time allotted for each topic, and any pre-reading or materials that participants need to review beforehand. Having a structured agenda helps to keep the meeting focused and on track. It also ensures that everyone is on the same page from the start.
That's a good point. So agenda. Invite the right people. Clear objectives. I'm starting to see a pattern here. It's all about being prepared and intentional.
You got it. And another key to a successful meeting is assigning roles. Make sure you have a facilitator to guide the discussion, a timekeeper to keep things on track, and a note taker to document key decisions and action items.
Oh yeah. Roles, that's important. I've definitely been in meetings where it's like everyone's just talking over each other and no one's really leading the conversation.
Right. Having a designated facilitator helps to ensure that the discussion stays focused and productive. The timekeeper helps to prevent the meeting from running over. And the note taker makes sure that all the important information is captured so that everyone can refer back to it later.
Okay, so we've got our facilitator, our timekeeper, and our note taker. We're moving right along. What other strategies do we have in our toolkit?
Okay, so this one is one of my personal favorites. It's called the parking lot technique.
Parking lot. What is that? Like we all have to drive to the meeting in separate cars.
No, not quite. Haha. The parking lot is a designated space. It could be a whiteboard or a shared document where you can capture any off-topic ideas or discussions that come up during the meeting.
Oh, I see. So instead of letting those tangents derail the entire conversation, you just park them in the parking lot to be addressed later.
Exactly. It's a great way to acknowledge those ideas without letting them take over the meeting. It also helps to keep the meeting focused on the main objective, and it prevents people from feeling like their ideas are being dismissed because they know that their ideas will be addressed eventually, just not right now.
I love that. That's such a simple but effective technique. I'm definitely going to start using that one.
I think you'll find it really helpful. And finally, one last strategy that I want to emphasize is the importance of seeking feedback.
Feedback, like after the meeting is over.
Yeah. Take a few minutes at the end of the meeting or even send out a quick survey afterwards to gather feedback from the participants. Ask them what worked well, what could be improved, and any suggestions they have for future meetings.
That's a great idea. It shows that you value their input and that you're committed to continuously improving the meeting experience.
Right. And it also helps to identify any patterns or issues that you might not be aware of. Maybe there's a certain topic that always seems to lead to tangents, or maybe people are feeling rushed and not getting enough time to share their thoughts. By gathering feedback, you can identify those areas for improvement and make adjustments for next time.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Specific objectives, intentional invitations, clear agendas, assigned roles, the parking lot technique, and seeking feedback. I'm starting to feel like I could actually run a productive meeting now.
I think you're well on your way. But let's be real. Even with the best strategies in place, challenges can and do arise. That's just the nature of meetings.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've had my fair share of meeting disasters. So let's talk about some of those common challenges and, more importantly, how we can overcome them.
So we've talked about strategies for running effective meetings, but even with the best laid plans, things can go wrong.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Meetings seem to have a way of attracting challenges and roadblocks. It's just like they have their own gravitational pull.
That's a great way to put it. But the good news is that most of these challenges are solvable. With a little bit of foresight and a proactive approach, we can overcome them and make our meetings much more productive.
Okay, so let's dive into those common challenges. What are some of the things that tend to trip us up in meetings? And more importantly, how can we mitigate them?
Well, one of the biggest challenges, I think, is lack of focus. You know that feeling when you leave a meeting and you're not really sure what was accomplished?
Oh, yeah, I've definitely been there. It's like everyone talked a lot, but nothing really got decided or moved forward.
Right. And that usually happens because the meeting lacked a clear objective or agenda, or because there wasn't a strong facilitator to keep the discussion on track. Remember those strategies we talked about earlier? They're your best defense against meeting meanderings.
So it's all about having those structures in place to guide the conversation. What about when people just aren't engaged? You know, those meetings where half the attendees are glued to their phones and the other half look like they'd rather be anywhere else.
Ah, yes. The disengaged meeting participant. A classic challenge. But usually there's a reason why people are disengaged. Often it's because they don't feel like the meeting is relevant to them, or they don't see how their contributions are valuable.
That makes sense. If you don't feel like you're contributing or getting anything out of it, why bother paying attention? So how do we combat that?
A few things. First, make sure you're only inviting people who truly need to be there. Second, clearly articulate how the meeting relates to their roles and responsibilities. And third, try to make the meeting as interactive and engaging as possible. Use polls, breakout discussions, ask open-ended questions, anything to get people involved and keep them from zoning out.
So it's about making people feel like their time is being respected and that their contributions matter. What about when you have that one person who dominates the conversation? Yeah. You know, the meeting hijacker.
Ah, yes. We all know that person. And they can definitely derail a meeting. This is where the role of the facilitator is so important. A skilled facilitator can gently guide the conversation and make sure that everyone has a chance to speak. You can also use techniques like round-robin discussions, where each participant gets a turn to share their thoughts.
Those are great tips. But let's face it, in today's world, a lot of our meetings are virtual. And virtual meetings come with their own unique set of challenges.
Oh, absolutely. Technical difficulties can be a nightmare, especially if you're not prepared. One of the best things you can do is to encourage everyone to test their equipment beforehand, make sure their cameras and microphones are working. And if you're using a platform that's new to some participants, provide clear instructions or even a quick tutorial, and always have a backup plan in case something goes wrong.
It's like the Boy Scout motto, be prepared.
Exactly. And just like with in-person meetings, it's important to have a clear agenda and objectives for your virtual meetings, and to assign roles like facilitator, timekeeper, and note-taker. This helps to keep the meeting structured and productive, even when you're not all in the same room.
Okay, this has been incredibly helpful. I feel much better equipped to handle the challenges that inevitably arise in meetings. But I'm curious about something. What about biases? How can we make sure that our meetings aren't being influenced by unconscious biases?
That's a great question. Biases can definitely sneak into meetings and impact our decision-making. One of the most common biases is anchoring bias, which is the tendency to fixate on the first piece of information presented, even if it's not the most relevant or accurate.
Oh, I've seen that happen. Someone throws out an idea early on, and suddenly the entire conversation revolves around it, even if there might be better alternatives.
Exactly, and that's why having a skilled facilitator is so important. They can help to ensure that all perspectives are considered and that the conversation doesn't get anchored to a single point of view. Another common bias is confirmation bias, where we tend to favor information that confirms our existing beliefs.
It's like we're only hearing what we want to hear, which can really stifle creativity and innovation in meetings.
Absolutely. To mitigate confirmation bias, it's important to actively seek out diverse perspectives. Encourage everyone to share their thoughts, even if they differ from the prevailing opinion.
So basically, don't be afraid to challenge the status quo.
Right. And then there's groupthink, where the desire for harmony overrides critical thinking. This can lead to poor decisions because people are afraid to speak up or rock the boat.
Groupthink can be so dangerous. It's like everyone's nodding along, even if they have doubts deep down.
Exactly. A strong facilitator can help prevent groupthink by creating a safe space for dissent. Encouraging anonymous feedback or using online tools for brainstorming can also help people feel more comfortable sharing their true opinions.
Those are great ideas. So anchoring bias, confirmation bias, groupthink. Are there any other biases we should be aware of?
One more that comes to mind is availability bias, where we overestimate the importance of information that's readily available to us.
So if someone just gave a compelling presentation, or if a certain topic is getting a lot of media attention, we might give it more weight than it deserves.
Precisely. It's important to step back and make sure you're considering all the relevant information, not just the information that's easiest to recall. Do some research. Gather data from multiple sources, and make a conscious effort to challenge your initial assumptions.
Wow, this has been so insightful. I feel like I've learned so much about not only the practical aspects of running effective meetings, but also the psychological traps that can sabotage our best efforts.
Remember, awareness is key. By understanding these biases, we can start to mitigate their impact and make more informed decisions. And that's ultimately the goal of any meeting, to come together, collaborate, and achieve a shared objective.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I feel like this deep dive has completely transformed my perspective on meetings. I'm going to go into my next meeting with a whole new set of tools and a heightened awareness of the dynamics at play.
That's great to hear. Remember choosing the right meeting type, setting clear objectives, utilizing those practical strategies. It's all crucial. But it's also about fostering a culture of open communication, active listening, and respect for diverse perspectives. And as always, don't forget to have a little fun along the way.
Absolutely. Well, a huge thank you to you for sharing your expertise with us today. This has been an incredibly valuable conversation.
It's been my pleasure. I always enjoy these deep dives. And to all of you listening, we hope you've gained some valuable insights that you can apply to your own meetings. Remember, every meeting is an opportunity to learn, grow, and achieve something great together.
And as always, we want to hear from you. Subscribe to Growth Within for more deep dives on topics that matter to you. And let us know in the comments, what are your biggest meeting pet peeves? Maybe we'll tackle them in a future episode.